All right. Here is another um, coverage, and I will title this Basic Principles of Instructional Design based on an ADDIE model. Okay, last time we ended our discussion with uh, the general principles, or we ended our discussion with the general principles or steps, I should say, stages, considering that generic model that I introduced in video one. This afternoon, we'll also focus on ADDIE. Okay, so by the end of the session, this session supposed to be this is a series of sessions, but I will make it as one session. You, my students, will have discussed the principles of instructional planning and design based on ADDIE model. You will supposed to be, I hope you can apply this, can write objectives based on learning taxonomies. And you'll be able to analyze and sequence learning content. You'll identify learning strategies, and hopefully you can write a sample lesson plan or a learning plan or instructional design. So each participant, if this is a training that I will conduct, I'm sure you will be doing this soon. I will assign you to write actually three instructional designs. So you'll write instructional design, learning plan based on the principles of ADDIE or the principle or the steps that we learned in the previous video using the generic instructional design model. Okay, so let's review what is ADDIE. What is ADDIE? What are the principles behind ADDIE? How can we use it to design instruction and learning? This is one of the models, the ADDIE model. Okay, you can go to this website for a reference. ADDIE means analysis, design, development, implementation, and evaluation. So this is a little different from what we learned in the previous video. All right. Now you should understand that instructional design can be in levels. The other day or the other video I gave you many levels also, but I considered the teacher level, the curriculum developer level, I considered the trainer level, the group of experts, subject matter experts, the personal producer, okay, producer personal, I should say, or the evaluator, okay, the curriculum evaluator level. You can also you can also apply instructional design in macro levels when you design uh, standards, framework, curriculum guides, curriculum maps. You can also apply the principles, okay, some principles. Much more, okay? When you will apply, what's more, comprehensively, you can surely apply all the details of a model when you develop instructional units, daily lessons, and modules. So probably I will require you in this class instructional units or modules, which you will learn as you uh, listen to the videos and the presentations in the class. Okay, here's a little insight from Davis. Whichever model the instructional designer chooses, he or she must make sure that the objectives of the instruction lesson must be met. Okay, here is a very important insight. Okay, whichever model you will use in designing instruction, we should be sure that the objectives of the instruction must be met, because learning is about the learner being able to perform the task they have given. Because learning is about the learner being able to perform the task they have been given. It's similar to what Gagni said, right? That the instructional design must aid in the learning process so that the learner is able to perform the task expected. He can achieve the objectives, okay, the learning objectives. All right, so that should be very clear. So we start with the objectives. Now let's go to ADDIE. What are the principles behind ADDIE? What are the principles? A a what will you analysis, what will you analyze? A analysis in the design includes instructional problem is clarified. What is the problem? Here in the analysis, the principle here in A is there must be a problem that you need to solve. Meaning, one of the problems shall be students' difficulties in solving binomials. That not be a problem. Okay, analysis of the problem. So you clarify the instructional goals. You should start with you approach instruction as if it's problem solving. You will strategize how students will learn best a certain skill or a certain content or a coverage. So in ADDIE, analysis or analyze in the ADDIE is or begins with a mindset problem solving. Okay, mindset is problem solving first. So you say, why will I teach this? What are the problems? What are the challenges that students face? Potential challenges that they will face if I'll teach this lesson. You start from there. Okay? So at the bottom here you will see a listing. Who is the audience and their characteristics? You will identify the new behavioral outcome. What types of learning constraints exist? What are the delivery options that I will have eventually? What are the pedagogical considerations? You analyze what is the timeline for the project completion or the timeline of this problem solving that I have to do. Okay, and this will refer to the teaching episode. Okay, instructional episode. I will be teaching the course, for example, mathematics in the modern world. What are the problems that students will likely face? What are the learning constraints? I'll analyze what is the instructional problem. Once I have seen the possible problems that students will encounter, considering their characteristics, considering the audience characteristics or the learner's characteristics, then I can start writing my instructional goals. I can establish them. Okay, I can analyze the learning environment. Okay, the knowledge and skills that learners potentially already have or they already have, so they can you can as a teacher analyze that at the beginning. Okay, before you even design instruction, you already know the challenges of the learners, the potential challenges of the learners, the learning constraints, and that you will solve. You will be designing, okay, based on such analysis. Okay, don't forget, after you have analyzed the context of your learning space, okay, the learning context, then you can start writing in the analysis stage goals and objectives. You can start to take a look at what are the delivery options that I have if these are the problems of the students. Okay, you'll be teaching a new course and you know that students come from another course in mathematics and you are teaching another course in mathematics. Say for example, they took math 1 already and now they will take math 2 and you'll be designing instruction there. Okay, what use this use the ADDIE. Okay, what are possible learning constraints they experienced in math 1? You ask the teacher, what are the problems of these students? What are their difficulties, etc., etc. Okay? What was their learning space before? And now they will be coming to your learning space. You analyze what are the what will be my options, what will be my problems, what will be my solutions, what will be my pedagogical considerations, how much time will I spend to solve these constraints. That should be part of your planning. Okay, and you can start writing your instructional goals and objectives. Okay, I hope you understand that clearly. Design. Now here design means deals with now learning objective. You started in the analyze section, analyze stage I should say, and now you list them. You design now. You start designing now. So deals with the design, the package is covering the design stage in the ADDIE, learning objectives, assessment instruments, the exercises, content, subject matter analysis, lesson planning, and media selection. Okay, so you are teaching the whole course math 2 now. So what will be the learning objectives of math 2, mathematics 2? What will be my assessment instruments for the whole semester period? What will be the exercises that I will be preparing? I will be using? What will be the content coverage? I will do content subject matter analysis. What will be my lesson planning? What will be the media that I will be selecting for the whole period? So this is a systematic and specific planning, right? Systematic and specific planning, because you will logically and in an orderly method identify and develop a set of planned teaching and learning strategies to target the project, to target the goal, right? The goal that you have set because you have seen those problems at the beginning. So now you're teaching math 2. It should be specific. Each element of the instructional design or plan needs to be executed with attention to details. So that's the design. So you prepare all the instructional plans. Okay, you prepare all the objectives. So this is the course that you will be taking. Uh, you'll be teaching, I should say, learning objectives for lesson 1. What will be the objective for the whole math 2? And then what will be the learning objectives each of the lessons? What will be the assessment instruments? Okay, if you are a tertiary or collegiate professor, you already know how to do this because you have a course outline, right? So it's easy. You can identify. You will know, huh? So it's specific. Where an outline of instructional where an outline of instructional strategies is created, or and learning activities and assessment are determined. Okay. So that's the design phase. You consider all the elements of the plan of the design: learning objective, assessment instruments, exercises, content, subject matter. You do already subject matter analysis, lesson planning part here, and media selection, videos, other media forms. Okay, you know what media is. Steps used for the design phase: documentation of the lessons, instructional, visual, and technical design strategy. Okay, documentation of the lessons, instructional, visual, and technical strategy. So you document, you already place in the design phase. You already have the the whole, no? The whole design. And in the design phase, you apply instructional strategies according to the intended behavioral outcomes by domain: cognitive, affective, psychomotor. I am referring to the instructional strategies. Okay, instructional strategies according to the intended behavioral outcomes by domain: cognitive, affective, psychomotor. So you already have planned lessons, right? And each lesson has cognitive objectives, affective objectives, psychomotor objectives. So your instructional strategies must be aligned to those objectives per lesson. Okay? So this is now a documentation. Design phase, documentation of the whole Math 2. My example is Math 2. Math 2 course. So if this is 15 lessons, you have 15 lessons. Okay? This is already the package, right? And you have documented already the 15 lessons. Lesson 1, there's one document. Lesson 2, lesson 3, lesson 3, lesson 4. And each lesson, you have these, right? Elements. Okay? Media is part there. Okay, let's go to development. So now you already have the package design and development now. Development. Create and assemble the content assets that were created in the design phase and develop and or integrate technologies. Okay? So you put together now. So this is sequence. Design, you put all the design, put all the, remember design we said you can arrange depending on how you will arrange. Remember our concept of design, arrangement of objectives. How do you arrange them? How do you start in the lesson planning, right? Or okay, so you organize objective first or subject matter first. So what will be your design, or what is the emphasis? Remember how we emphasize the elements of the design. Now, specifically, you assemble now, you develop. So it's a sequence. From the design, you already know the design. Now you develop, you assemble everything, and you test the procedures. Test. Okay? Test. So this is testing. Development is testing. So it's testing. You can pilot test your lessons. You can pilot test your lessons. Okay? After assembling everything, putting them together, and then you implement. So after you test procedures, after you test, do a little testing, do a little revising. Okay, testing, revising, then you can start to implement. So ADDIE, implement. Cover the course curriculum plan, cover the learning outcomes, you cover all the delivery methods, you cover all the assessment methods, and during the implementation, it's also necessary that you train your learners. You prepare the learners how they will be learning all through. Okay, you prepare them how you will learn, how they will learn math 2 the whole semester time. Preparation of the learners include training them on new learning tools and strategies. So if you have specific strategies you have listed, teaching and learning strategies in your design phase, you teach them how to use those strategies. You teach them how to use those learning tools. If you'll be using media, for instance, you teach them how to navigate through this media. That's part of your implementation. So after you have packaged, after you have designed, after you have developed, put them assembling all together, the 15 lessons, you have identified the media that you will be using, internet, computer, SMS, Microsoft Teams, Zoom. You train your students how to use these tools. If there are specific study strategies, study tools, you teach them how. Prepare. And then after that, you cover. Okay? Cover the whole curriculum. The methods of delivery that you have listed, you cover them. You implement them. Okay? Then evaluation. Evaluation, you can have two parts, formative evaluation. You can have formative evaluation every time, every lesson. And you can also have summative evaluation. When you finish the whole course, you'll have a summative evaluation whether students have learned all the competencies of the course. Okay? Your evaluation classes will discuss formative and summative. All right? So let's try to those are the principles, right? ADDIE. Now let's take a look at let's have exercise. Okay, exercise. Let's review again, following the steps. Assess or analyze. List 10 learning characteristics of your prospective students. List their attitudes and habits. Okay, assess. Describe by listing only their knowledge about technology, for instance. Okay, you can try this. Consider their prior knowledge of the course. I will teach math 2. I will test them. What's their prior knowledge of the course? Where will they learn things? Assess. Classroom, lab, assess. Design. Okay, now you design now. Review content structures and sequencing strategies. You sequence. You know the sequencing strategies? Write your objectives. Review your learning strategies. Choose your learning strategies that will match the learner's behaviors described in the objectives. Okay, design. Okay, for example, I'll just give example of objectives. You review content, you already know the coverage, the content. You have sequenced them already. Next video, I'll give you sequencing. How to sequence content or skills. Okay? Are you using these taxonomies? Are you using these? Create, evaluate, analyze, apply, understand, remember. Creating means combining parts to make a new whole. Will you require your students to create? Will this be your target learning behaviors? Okay, learners' behaviors. Evaluate. Will you train them to judge the value of information? I just evaluating. Will you require them to analyze? You have to break down information into component parts. Will you require them? Will you train them? Is it part of your the learning behaviors of the students that they will understand facts, remember, recognize, or recall facts? Okay, so you train them how to do. Okay, you prepare. If you know that this will be your intended learning, okay, intended learning behaviors of the students, then you put that in your design. Or you may consider this framework, right? When you design, you write your objectives. Okay, so you have when you write your objectives, remember the verbs that you will use. If evaluation, estimate, value, measure. So use these verbs when you write your objectives instead of using generic words. No, 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 no. Choose these specific verbs here. Okay? So if the focus is analysis, then you write the word distinguish, debate, compare, differentiate, question, diagram, calculate, solve. That's part of the analysis. Okay? Or you can use the solo taxonomy. I'm referring to objectives, right? Objectives. Describe objectives. Part of the designing. Remember, if we remember the principle that objectives determine, okay? Objectives, look at Davis, what Davis said. Objectives determine all our designs. All our designs must meet objectives. So if your objectives revolve around these macro skills, macro thinking skills, creating, evaluating, analysis, applying, understanding, remembering. Okay? Now, you use instructional models. Remember, when you are designing, you will be using instructional models. Okay? As we discussed a while ago, I'm just emphasizing more. Use instructional models. What is a model? What is an instructional model? It acts as a blueprint for teaching, dictates actions of the teacher. We call it instructional model. How will you behave as a teacher when you will teach in the actual class? You should put that in your design too. Instructional model. There are so many variety of instructional strategies, right? So it is designed to help the students learn content and develop their thinking skills. We just discussed the thinking skills here. Creating, evaluating, analyzing, applying, understanding, remembering. Okay? So adapt. In the design phase, choose your instructional models, the blueprint for your teaching. I'll give you an example. So these are examples of instructional models that we can, it's raining heavily. Na? So you can research on this. You can adapt instructional models such as integrative model, social interaction model, inductive model, concept attainment model, concept development model, problem-based model, direct instruction model, lecture discussion model, which is teacher-centered. So when you design, in the design phase, you choose instructional models. So lesson plan number one, I will use integrative model. It fits this lesson. Lesson number two, lesson plan number two, I'll use concept attainment model. Okay, lesson number three, I will use the problem-based model. So you can integrate instructional models when you design. Okay, so when you design, you know content, you know the learning objectives already. Now you have to have instructional models. Okay, you should adapt instructional models. Another one, look at this. Direct instructional model. Okay? Direct instruction model. So in this model, the teacher structures the topic, the teacher explains it to the students, and you provide students the opportunity to practice and gives feedback. So that's direct instruction model. Right. For example, you have Madeline Hunter's model of mastery learning. So in addition to this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, you can add direct instruction model. You can add the model introduced by Madeline Hunter. Okay? Anticipatory set, objective and purpose. You can choose maybe lesson 10 will use, so if I'm teaching math 2, lesson number 10, I will utilize Madeline Hunter's model. Okay? Or if you will decide all of the lessons from lesson 1 to lesson 15 of my math 2, I will only use Madeline Hunter's model of mastery learning. So you follow the instructional model. Anticipatory set, you begin. Objective and purpose, input, modeling, checking for understanding, guided practice, independent practice, and closure. Okay? What is in, I'll just discuss this because these are some neat strategies or neat instructional models. Instructional models, remember, this is different from instructional design model. Instructional design model, example is ADDIE, and that one that we discussed the previous video. Now we are talking about instructional model, what the teacher will use, okay, when he or she teaches. What will be his or her script? Okay, so this will be the plan of the teacher, instructional plan. It must follow a model too. So maybe my instructional plan, instructional model, a blueprint for teaching, right? Dictates the actions of the teacher. What will the teacher do? Okay, and there are many. Okay, the purpose is to help students learn content and develop their thinking skills. So you can use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then add direct instruction model. You can add Madeline Hunter. I'll just explain Madeline Hunter's instructional model briefly. Okay? Anticipatory set. You begin. The teacher focuses on students' thoughts on what will be learned. Okay? It is tying the previous lesson and the new.
Get them interested. That's anticipatory set. You can use a prompt, okay, that focuses the student's attention. Okay, handout given to students at the door. You can review questions written on the board. Two short problems presented on the transparency or overhead or the PPT. Okay, anticipatory set to just attract attention. Give them the agenda of the day. Anticipatory text. So any of these you will use. Then objective and purport. You state the objectives. Explain why the objectives need to be achieved. How are the objective you here in this stage of your teaching? If you'll use Madeline Hunter, you will link the objectives to real life. You know, this objective is has to be achieved in our learning because this is connected to real life. Okay. Input. Input now means new knowledge, process, or skill must be presented. Here is now that the teacher now will deliver the lesson. Okay. This could be through discovery, discussion, reading, listening, observing, all possible learning strategies. So, input includes vocabulary, skills, concepts the teacher will impart to the students. The information the students need to know in order to be successful. Input. That's input. Then modeling. Students must see what they are learning. Okay? So here in the stage, after the teacher does 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3 input, modeling now. Modeling means, okay, it helps students when the teacher demonstrates. So you have to model as a teacher. Okay, the teacher shows a graphics or demonstrates in a concrete way what exactly needs to be accomplished, what the product of learning should look like. Okay, checking for understanding. Now, after you have modeled, after you have done the input and you modeled the expected output, then you check for understanding. Okay, you ask questions, questioning strategies. And you can ask the students on the pace of the lesson, if it's fast or very slow. Guided practice. Okay, you allow students to practice new learning. So now they have already learned something new from this teacher after the teacher provided input, after the teacher modeled. Okay, now you can check for understanding, and then after checking for understanding, allow them to practice the new learning under direct supervision of the teacher. Okay? Then independent practice. Without the guidance of the teacher, give them tasks that they can independently do, still aligned to the input and the model that the teacher has presented. Then you close the class. Okay? Teacher reviews or wraps up the lesson by posing a question for the class. Tell me or show me what you have learned today. Close the class. Close the class with that question. Closure is not necessarily an endpoint, but more of the final check for understanding. So you close the class by still checking whether the students have learned the lesson. Okay? Closure for ongoing laboratory activities may not be appropriate. So if there is ongoing laboratory tasks, activities, closure be may not be appropriate. Okay, what about the lecture discussion model? Uses a teacher-centered approach to help students understand organized body of knowledge. How will you do, what will you do so that you will have a good lecture? You use advanced organizers. Okay? So that you will structure the content, the network of ideas you present, part of the lecture. Here's another, I will add, how many have you learned already? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then direct instruction model, Madeline Hunter, and then you can use add cognitive apprenticeship. Look at this. Okay, review this one, okay? These are the parts of cognitive apprenticeship. Cognitive apprenticeship is one that you can add to your list. Instructional model. Okay, so one lesson maybe will use cognitive apprenticeship. Okay, you review this. Okay, you review this. Okay, so I ended with that because I would like to emphasize more. Okay, emphasize more the design section. Remember design. Okay, assess, design. After you design, what will you do? Considering all those that I have discussed, what will you do? After designing, develop. Develop means assembling everything. After you assemble everything, let's go again. Okay, after you develop, I just emphasize the design part because design is very important. Develop, put together everything, tests, try out. After testing, revise. After revising, fully implement. Okay, after you implement all, train the students, then you evaluate. Okay, so that is ADDIE. Okay, so I hope you learned some principles, instructional design principles using ADDIE model. And we started with another model in the previous video. And this one is ADDIE. So the last part of the presentation in this set of slides, I focused on assess and design. Very important. Designing is key. So all those that I placed there, you can review. Okay, how to design. Part of the designing is employing instructional models. Okay, so I hope that is very clear.